So my name's Pete Judge and I'm a musician and composer, and I was lucky enough to work as MD, musical director for Psycat's fantastic show Strictly Balti. But the process on this show was slightly different for me from previous shows that I've worked on, mainly because it was a solo show and a show with a lot of text. And music was only required at a few key points. And it's also the first show that I've worked on where a lot of my job was finding other people's music rather than writing my own. And I actually really enjoyed that process. It led me to listen to some music that I wouldn't otherwise have listened to, particularly music connected with the world of ballroom dance, which hasn't been a major part of my musical experience, but I really enjoyed it. The process of digging out Joe Loss, Bert Campfair and James Last tunes I actually found very satisfying and enjoyable. They're very witty arrangements, and finding exactly the right sections to use in particular parts of the play was really interesting. And also finding music from the Indian subcontinent I really enjoyed. There's a piece of music by a percussionist called Zakir Hussain, which is actually on a jazz album, really. It's a kind of contemporary jazz album called Making Music, where he works with a saxophonist called Yanga Barak. And I discovered that bit of music years ago, probably about 15 years ago, and always loved it. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And when asked to do this show, and we were talking, Psycat and Sally the director and I were talking about what kind of music would fit in particular sections, and I just knew that that piece, which I stored away in my head, would be the perfect fit, and it was right from the beginning. So that piece set the tone for everything else that I did on the show, I think, apart from the ballroom dance. Obviously, as an expression of someone's experience, it's a complete eye-opener for me, growing up in white, lower middle class, suburban England. There's a fascinating glimpse into another, a way in which a different culture has embedded itself into British life. I found really, really interesting. But I think quite apart from that, it just speaks as the experience of a boy growing up in a period not long after the period in which I grew up in this country as well. So there's lots of similarities, I think, and the humour and the pathos of the show and the focus of the show on the relationship between Psycat and his parents. I think there's so much for all of us to relate to. I think in a large way it's about identity, and it's about whether your identity comes from a place or from family or from history, and I think we can all relate to that. I think it's a very, very easy show to hook into right from the beginning. That's actually an easier question to answer. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Indian food, and we have a very, very good Indian restaurant just along from us here on North Street in Bristol, run by my friend Al. And I traditionally am known to choose a danzak and sag bhaji with pilau rice, of course, and if I'm really pushing the boat out, Peshwari naan as well.